Everyone. Welcome to Melody's 15-year anniversary special series. We are calling this My 15 Years. So thanks for tuning in. We're going to do 2 episodes every month. So you're going to get 24 altogether, and we're going to go through her journey of 15 years. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to share my story from the beginning.
All right. So let's start at the very, very beginning. We're going to go all the way back. How many years ago are we going back?
15 years.
15 years.
15 years. The 21st of December, I was diagnosed with ocular melanoma.
Okay. And what year was that? So I don't have to do math.
2010.
2010. Oh, yeah, from 2025. Never mind. That's not hard math. I could have done that.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your life before diagnosis. Where were you? What were you doing?
Well, before I was diagnosed, I was living in North Carolina. I was married, had a landscaping company that was very successful at the time, and doing well. We had moved to North Carolina in 2007, so from California. So we were just kind of getting going in the swing of things with the landscaping company and kind of our new life in North Carolina. And before that, I lived in California, and I had a background in sales and marketing and design. So I had a couple landscaping companies that throughout my life, and so it seemed like a good fit when we moved to North Carolina.
And before all of this began, had you ever heard of ocular melanoma?
Never in my life have I ever heard of it. I knew what melanoma was, and I knew it wasn't good. But no, I didn't even know that you could get cancer in your eye. It was a total shock to me.
Do you remember the first moment you realized something might be wrong with your vision?
You know, honestly, I didn't even realize there was something really wrong with my vision. I'd had a little shadow in the left corner, upper corner. And I used to ask people, do you ever see this weird little thing up there? And they're like, no. But I have lots of floaters. I'm real nearsighted. I got a lot of garbage that floats around in my eyes and just always have. I had taken my mom to Dugai for retinal vein occlusion. And they handed her one of the little Amsler grids little grid that you're supposed to look at every day. And if you see wavy lines, you're supposed to let somebody know. So they handed it to me, and I looked at it. It's like, wow. In my left eye, the lines are wavy, and they're just like, oh, you're probably fine. And it's like, oh, okay. So
Wait, what?
Yeah. I thought, well, maybe I'm developing a little macular degeneration or something, but, it's not anything big. So other than that, my vision was fine. Took the magnet home, put it on the refrigerator, never looked at it again.
Isn't it funny how you don't see what's on your refrigerator? I do that too.
Yeah, I never even looked at it. I never even gave it to my mom to look at again either, so.
Yeah. So tell us the story of what led you to the doctor.
Well, we had a landscaping company. And I was moving a very large ball and burlap tree with an employee. And we were going down the ramp of a trailer with this dolly. And I had one side and he had the other. Well, he slipped and let go of his side. And when he did, the tree spun around and knocked me in the face. And knocked my glasses to the ground and proceeded to run over them a few times. So they were very, very smushed and not usable. Without glasses, I'm very, very nearsighted. I can't see very far. Like, I can see a few feet in front of me clearly, and after that, it's just blurry. So we got things together, and I decided I needed to go to LensCrafters so I could get glasses in an hour. Because I needed to be able to see. Without glasses, I'm just blind, basically. So I got in the car, went to LensCrafters for glasses in an hour, and the optometrist said, have you noticed anything weird? I said, well, I kind of have this weird shadow thing, but nothing major. Because it didn't seem to be anything major. I could still see. So he looked, he dilated my eyes, and he took some pictures. And then he looked and he looked and he looked and he had me looking this way and that way and almost upside down and turning all around. And I'm thinking, no one's ever looked in my eye this long before, ever. This is weird. So I started getting a little concerned. And I just did what he said and waited, and he turned around, turned his back towards me and wrote something in my chart and said, you have ocular melanoma. Do you have anybody with you? And I said, no. What's that? Well, I think you should call your husband and have your husband come down, and I'll explain it all to him. In the meantime, here's a prescription. Go out and look for some glasses. So I walked out into the store of Lens Crafters, kind of in a stupor, just kind of like, what the heck? What did he just say? I had a step grandfather who had passed from melanoma a few years ago. So I knew melanoma was bad. And I knew melanoma in my eye couldn't be good. So, right. So I called my husband, he came down, and it was the weirdest, most surreal thing. I'm telling him on the phone, you need to come, and I kind of cried because I was scared. I thought, this is not good. So I walked back into the optometrist spot, and they put me in a chair, and they took my husband back all by himself.
What?
They did. They just left me sitting there, and I'm like, but I was, do you know when you're in one of those almost out of body type, it's like, you can't really say anything, you can't really move, you're like, okay, but in your mind, you're like, this isn't right. But you just don't, you don't have the ability to say, no, I want to go too. You just follow the instructions because you're not like really present, maybe?
Yeah, and a doctor's sort of like an authority figure in a way, like you do what they tell you to do.
Exactly, and I did exactly what he told me to do.
Right.
So my husband came out and said, well, it's probably not good. They're going to send you to a retinal specialist. They're making an appointment now for us to be seen right away. So one caveat to this whole thing is that I did not have health insurance. None. Because 4 years prior, I had been diagnosed with kidney cancer, took a leave of absence from my employer, and during my leave of absence, my employer was sold to another company. So my COBRA policy I had on my leave of absence was no longer a valid policy, which means I didn't have COBRA, which means I couldn't get insurance. We looked at insurance a couple of times. It was about $2,500 a month for a copay in 2010. With a rider against cancer. You could have no other cancers. They wouldn't cover it. So I never got insurance because who could afford that?
Right.
I mean, that was twice our mortgage payment. So it just was not possible. So I had two things to worry about. I had to figure out what ocular melanoma was, and then how am I going to pay for this? Because I know it's not going to be cheap. Paying $40 for the pictures at the optometrist was kind of high. And this was all at Christmas, December 21st, 2010. So it's at Christmas time.
Yep.
So there's all these things that are going through your head, and I'm just like, well, how are we going to do this, and how are we going to do that? But wait, what's this? And it was just really hard to make any coherent thoughts in my head. So we went ahead and went to the retina specialist, and he offered us, a payment plan, and he took some photos, and he said, yeah, it's ocular melanoma. And we don't treat it here. You have to go to one of the hospitals in Raleigh and get treated. But you don't have any insurance, and this is going to cost you $25,000 and up. And we're like, well, we don't have that kind of money. So now I have cancer in my eye. I have no insurance. I can't figure out how to pay for it.
Right.
But I did get glasses, so I could see.
Well, that's something.
I did get my glasses. And it was just the weirdest, it was the weirdest feeling of somebody telling you that you have cancer in your eye. And I remember going into the retina specialist, and they had a big chair that kind of was like a dentist chair, and it was set up really high. And there was a big computer monitor on the wall. And the photo of my eye tumor was on the wall, and it looked huge. It looked like it took up more than half of my eye, which was very scary.
Yeah.
Then they did an eye exam, and they said, take off your glasses, cover your right eye. What do you see? I couldn't see anything. It was white. There were no letters. They said, okay, cover your left eye, and I could see them with my right eye. So then that was concerning. It's like, why can't I see anything? Because I certainly thought I had vision in that eye before. but I couldn't see anything on the chart at all. Looking backwards, my eye had been very sensitive to light. When I would be talking to a client outside about their landscaping, I remember I would close my left eye a lot because the sun would just really make it ache. But it never dawned on me that I just thought I was light sensitive. I didn't think I had anything going on in my eye. So we gathered ourselves up and went home and tried to figure out what we were going to do. So our next step was going to University of North Carolina. That was one of the places that was recommended that we go to. The retina specialist had gone to school there, so those were his instructors, so he highly recommended going there. So we went there, we talked to them, we talked to them about exactly what it was. They didn't know. They said, well, you had kidney cancer, this could be a metastasis. Now we have to figure out, is this another primary? Or is this a metastasis of something else? But it kind of looks like ocular melanoma, but it kind of doesn't. So now we're even more concerned. We're like, well, maybe it is, maybe it's not. So they say, go home and come back next week for testing. Enjoy the holidays, right? How are you going to do that? But go enjoy the holidays. So we went home and we were both just kind of numb and like, what the heck is this? And so the doctors at UNC did consult with Shields, and they did say, yes, it is definitely an ocular melanoma. It had all the characteristics. It just wasn't showing up highly orange pigmented in the photos. But my tumor measured 11 by 14 wide and 5 high. So I was on the large medium side, and it's way, way down here towards the back. So that meant a surgery where they had to cut the muscles, slip the plaque in. There was just all this uncertainty of exactly how this was going to happen. So during our break, until the next week to go have more testing done, I called a friend of mine who sold insurance, and she said, North Carolina has a Affordable Care Act pre-enrollment that you will qualify for. So I was able to qualify. We had to wait 15 days in order for it to be effective, which was fine. So I enrolled, I was accepted, and my payment was like $350 a month. So I dodged a bullet there, right?
Yeah.
We talked to financial aid at UNC. They had a compassionate care program that would cover things until this insurance kicked in. So luckily, most university hospitals have a compassionate care where they'll write off a good portion of the hospital bill. But that doesn't include the doctor. And you still have to pay the doctor and all the side non-hospital bills, which we could figure out a way to do that. So we had Christmas and we started testing. Went back in, had another eye test. They told me absolutely no, we are not going to do a biopsy. They don't like biopsies. They wanted nothing to do with it. My oncologist from my kidney cancer pressed for one, but they still said no. So we're still in this, what is this game? So they went ahead and they scheduled me for scanning. So I did CT and MRI. I had a MRI of the brain and of the abdomen, CT of the lung, and more bad news. So I get a call. You guys need to come in. We have your results of your scan. We go in. We think, this can't be good because they're calling us and they're not telling us on the phone I'm fine.
Right.
He said, you have metastatic cancer somewhere. We don't know where the primary is. We're thinking it's the eye, but you have lesions in your spleen and in your lungs, and you have enlarged lymph nodes in your chest. You have 3 to 6 months to live. I'm like, how did we go from I was fine to ocular melanoma to 3 to 6 months to live? How did this all happen? I had a cold in December, and I couldn't really figure out why. I was the only one in the family that ever got colds in November, December, January. But nobody else in the family got them. I had it, and I just said, okay, I got a cold. Well, I was coughing and hacking through all of this stuff, and the doctor said, once your cold is better, we're going to do a biopsy on your lymph nodes to find out what this is. Well, my cold didn't get better, so they decided that they would go ahead and schedule me for a biopsy. Well, a biopsy of the lymph nodes of the chest is a big deal, and I didn't know that either. Talk about
Yeah.
crash
How
course
would
in
you?
medical education.
Right.
So I had to sign papers to allow for a blood transfusion. I had to have my blood typed. I came back with some weird blood enzyme that one of the people that have this are people with HIV. So then I had to have an HIV test. And
Oh my
it
gosh.
just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm like, well, I've got 3 to 6 months to live. What do we do? So I went ahead and signed up for the biopsy. And they took the biopsy and said, no, it doesn't look like cancer. And so I waited for them to figure it out what it was. It came back that I have a rare autoimmune called sarcoidosis that put little granulomas in my spleen and my lung and made my lymph nodes enlarge, which looked like metastatic cancer. But I did not know this until the biopsy was the beginning of January, when I was told I had 3 months to live. And I didn't get the results of this for 2 months because I had to wait. I had all this stuff I had going on. So for 2 months, I sat there thinking I was dying any day because 3 to 6 months to live. So then when I thought, well, sarcoidosis is better than metastatic cancer, until I looked at the side effect or the effects of sarcoidosis, and it really could have been a lot worse. But luckily for me, it wasn't. I have some weird things with it, but it never progressed to a point where it was life-threatening for me, thank goodness. Yeah. So now we're back to square one. So this is around February of 2011. And they say, okay, we're going to get you scheduled for the plaque. We know it's ocular melanoma. We know that you're fine. Everything is kind of calmed down. You can have surgery now. Except this is the time when all the doctors go to their medical meetings, so we don't have a crew. Like, what do you mean you don't have a crew? We can't get a full crew together to do your procedure. This is February. I finally got scheduled for my plaque radiation April 21st of 2011, 4 months later. But the good thing was I was going to have more than 3 to 6 months to live, and I wasn't dying right away. The bad news was the plaque was going to cover my macula. I was going to lose vision in my eye. And oh yes, go get your affairs in order, because now you're going to live past 6 months, but 2 to 5 years. You only have 2 to 5 years. I was 48 years old. Thinking, I have 2 to 5 years? How in the world am I going to fit all of my living into 2 to 5 years?
Yeah.
So it was all this emotional stuff. It was the highs and the lows and the ups and the downs. And every time you thought you got some good news, you got bad news right behind it. And then sometimes the bad news was followed up with even worse news. So it was just this big mess of emotions and mind games, and trying to sort out how in the world you're going to pull your life together with no vision in one eye, and now you got sarcoidosis to deal with, and you're going to have surgery. You're going to be out of work. How am I going to do all this? The doctors were as good as they could be in 2010. They weren't compassionate, warm, fuzzy guys. They were very matter-of-fact people. And I did appreciate the matter-of-factness, but at the same time, it was really hard that they could deliver such news so matter-of-fact. I never could understand how they could tell somebody, you have 2 to 5 years. Just like, oh, well, go to the store and, buy a Coke. That was the tone, and it was very difficult to grasp that. So I had the plaque radiation, and I did okay. I had some double vision for a couple of months. I had to have a prism put on my glasses to help counteract the double vision. I had really bad depth perception issues. It was a long recovery for me. Well, I had the plaque in. I pretty much camped out on the couch because I couldn't lay flat. It hurt. Anytime I moved my eye, it hurt because they cut the muscle, put the plaque in, and every time you moved your eye, it pinched. And if you move one eye, the other eye moves. So I sat with my eyes closed and listened to the television for 5 days. But the good thing was, in North Carolina, they had just passed a law that I was able to go home. So I didn't have to spend the night in the hospital, which also kept costs down. So we were excited about that. Then going forward was just trying to recover and trying to learn how to drive again and trying to figure out all the stuff that nobody tells you, like when you go to pour something, you're going to spill all over your counter, and if you throw something away, you're probably going to miss the trash can, and anything that tried putting on makeup when you don't have any depth perception, it was just really hard. But these are all the things nobody tells you about. Learning to drive when you have crazy vision is hard, and it took me. I was very cautious. I went around the block a couple of times. I wouldn't venture far in the beginning because it was really hard, and freeways were difficult to navigate. So the whole first 5 months with it was just a whirlwind, fuzzy blur that I can remember it like it was yesterday, but at the time it wasn't like it was really happening. It was like it was happening to somebody else and I was watching.
That makes sense. Kind of surreal.
Yeah, very surreal, very surreal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we are going to wrap it up there for this first episode, and we will see you guys all back on our next episode.